You're listening to the Fierce Valley Podcast, episode 144, Legends that Fatphobia Stole. Let's do it.
Perfect.
Hello, welcome to the episode. Hello, welcome to the podcast. Nice to see ya. To see you, nice. If you're British, you'll get that reference. How's life? How you doing? What's going on with you? What's going on with me is I have moved apartments, and there is apartments facing my apartment, and I've witnessed a person in the apartments opposite me having a beautiful friendship with a seagull. Yes, this person opens their window and the seagull come and lands on their windowsill, like 8 floors up, and they feed the seagull, and then another seagull's hanging at the top, so I think maybe multiple seagulls are being fed. And I feel like I'm in a David Attenborough documentary, because also there's a tree outside my new apartment that an owl lives in, and so the crows of the neighborhood are like, this motherfucking owl is in my motherfucking tree, and go bananas when they see the owl. They're not going wild today, no cawing, but I'm like, I love the everyone's like, there's a fucking owl, watch out everybody, and the owl's like, dude, I'm trying to sleep, like, I'm nocturnal, chill. So yeah, totally in nature right now. I'm in downtown Vancouver, so I'm not in nature, but I can see a tree, so it's pretty amazing. So if you're watching the video, you might recognize that it looks different. I don't have any of my paintings up there or anything yet, so I got someone from TaskRabbit. I don't know if you've ever heard of TaskRabbit before, but it's a website where you can hire people to do any type of thing that you want, I think within reason. Like, so I got a couple of people to come and help me move, and then also I got someone to do some handiwork around the place. Unfortunately, so this guy that did the handiwork, right? It feels like he fucked up everything. My wardrobe, right? I asked him to put a pole in. The pole is wonky. I asked him to put so there was a shelf only in the wardrobe, and so I said, can you just move that up a little bit so we put the pole in, and the guy was like really tall, and so he's put the shelf like 4 inches from the ceiling, so I can't reach it or put anything in there, and so most of the space, and he's done that with the hall room closet too. And then I asked him to hang my vacuum, my Dyson, it's wonky, and hang a curtain pole, and he did half of it and then was like, no, I can't do it. It's just, this is I can't do this. He was saying that the curtain pole, it was the curtain pole's fault, and I was like, oh, okay. But no, I don't think so, because then like a couple of days later the whole thing just fell down. So, oh dear. So I've got another person coming out in a week to finish the jobs and stuff, and so fix the jobs. I actually rehung the pole myself, and also put the in my closet, put the shelf where it should be, but I did an imperfect job. The shelf is wonky, so now the pole still looks wonky because the shelf above it is like slightly on an angle. So so I'm gonna wait for someone else to do it, because it's just too much for my brain. I think I can do it. Like I bought some drill bits and shit. So, but it's just not worth my brain power. And I think it's about $40 to $60 an hour ish, depending on the skill of the handy person. I think if someone's like a professional, then it's more. But I mean, it's good to know, isn't it? Right? Anyway, so today's episode, it's pretty heavy, and so if let me change that word, because the word heavy implies bad things are heavy, are bad, or are difficult. So let's change that phrasing. It's pretty difficult to hear, maybe for some people, for a lot of people, maybe. There is talk about eating disorders. There's talk about deaths, because we're talking about here in this episode, famous people who died potentially at the hands of fatphobia. So almost everyone in this episode are people who have died potentially tragically, died too young, died because of maybe because of fatphobia, and also talking about fatphobic stuff people say about fat celebrities when they die. Talking about diet pills. We're talking about stomach amputation and squeezing surgery. We're talking about facelift. We're talking about, there might be mention of calories, maybe. There might be mention of weight. I don't think, I'll probably take the weight out, depending on. There's talking about mental health stuff. So if any of that is not feeling good, then skip the episode and come see me next week. Just a quick update on last week's episode, talking about the vacation and the vacation. We had lots of people complete the survey. If you haven't completed the survey, please do so, because then also you'll get to let us know where you want to go. When I say us, I mean me, and also it means that your email will be in the system, so we can let you know when it's announced. So far, people's top 3 favourite destinations, top 4, Ireland. Why did you all choose Ireland? Is it because I've got a little Irish mammy and you want to go see the Irish mammy? Ireland, Italy, and New Orleans? Yeah, New Orleans and coastal Maine. Also on there was, lower down on the list was Dominican Republic and Mexico. The reason why I bring those up is, remember last week I said, my ideas about this vacation. It's really important for me that it's accessible. Other fat folks who've hosted vacations, who are fat influencers, have tended to pick locations that were the top requested, which were also happened to be deeply inaccessible. So, for example, somewhere like Italy, because we have in Canada and also the US, we have ADA. It's called something else in Canada, American Disabilities Act. And so we've got like this set of standards that we know that certain places would adhere to and what they actually mean. Other countries don't necessarily have that. And also, say somewhere like Italy, if we're going to be going over to Italy and Rome, and a lot of places are cobbled streets, a lot of places it's walking tours. All of the things is walking tours. And so I asked folks, what are your accessibility needs? A few folks said, one person said that they would need a mobility device, and a couple of other people said, we don't want long walking tours. And so because of what I'm looking to do is more chill. I want, beach time, relaxing, go and maybe doing an activity that doesn't involve climbing a mountain and things like that, right? It's really important for me to be accessible. So, and so I really want to know if we did choose between Mexico and Dominican Republic, and there's a reason why I'm using those two specifically, is because both of those locations, the locations that have been previously scouted out, have been there's a body positive seal of approval, a fat positive seal of approval. Now I'm working with the tour operators to absolutely nail down what that means, but so far no activities where there is a weight limit under 500 pounds. Rooms that can be on the first floor with showers that you can walk or wheel into, large towels in the hotel. I said, what does large mean? let's clarify what large means, because thin people will be like, that towel is huge, and then we put a fat person uses it and it's like, oh, it's a small washcloth. So also people who are running the tours have also had sensitivity training. So that sounds good, right? That sounds good. Versus if we went to somewhere like Italy, that there would not be any of that stuff, right? And here's another thing. Italy, or anywhere in Europe, is a lot more expensive than DR or Mexico or Costa Rica maybe. So, but I want to do what you want to do. And so if you're like, Vinny, I don't care about all that fat shit. I'm fat, but I just want to go and, eat some pizza and whatever in Italy. Go and ride on some Italian dicks or whatever. That's what you're interested in. And the whole accessibility thing isn't even the sensitivity training and the fat positivity angle is not of interest to you, then let me know. But if that is important, please let me know. And so that means going to the survey. I'll put it in the show notes, and letting me know that Mexico or Dominican Republic is where you want to go. If we see that moving up it's in the top 10 right now. If we see that moving up for where you want to go, then we'll know that is important for folks. And if you have accessibility requirements or needs, please email me and let me know, fatty@fiercefatty.com. That's really important, so I can understand what is needed. And also the thing is, folks could say absolutely we have accessibility needs, but we don't know if those folks are going to come on the trip, right? Because this is all very preliminary. So the more information that we have, the better. All right. So I'm biased. I'm like, I wanted to make it fat positive and relaxing on the beach, swimming, sand, pool, love it. And the Italy thing is very kind of walking every day, walking some more, walking, eating a pizza, doing some walking. So it's a totally different type of vibe, and a lot of people like that. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. Like, I would probably want to do that too, but it's not aligning with my vision. So let me know. You might be like, fuck your vision, Vinny, we want Italian. We don't Italy, we want somewhere else as well. So let me know. Go to the survey notes. Anyway, side note, if you're not going to listen to this episode because you think it might trigger you, you can go now. Leave. Enjoy your day. But let's get into legends that Fatphobia stole. So just a kind of... this is something that I've been thinking about because I watched the new Baz Luhrmann Elvis movie. I really enjoyed it, even though I feel like it goes against my better judgment because there was a nod to black culture, which really Elvis just stole black culture, and there wasn't a lot of it, but I was like, oh well, there's a nod, and Tom Hanks is wearing a fat suit, so against my better judgment I watched it and I enjoyed it a lot. Which is I don't know, whatever, my brain enjoyed it, but it made me think about it's about Elvis, obviously, how we talk about Elvis, fat Elvis died, either the stories that we hear about why Elvis died, and the fact that he was so fat is what people say. He was so fat and he was just eating so much food, and because he was so fat, and he died on the toilet basically, and I think as well there's another urban legend around someone else, but basically being fat and taking drugs is what folks a lot of the times talk about. And it's very... When I was reading stuff about Elvis, the words that people were using, gorging, out of control, locked himself in the way in his room just so he could eat and things like that. And I was just like, shit, like, that's fucked up. And in the film, and in real life, his mum, she died young and she was fat. I'm wouldn't say she wasn't fat. She was more kind of like a small fat person. But that was kind of, I really liked seeing that Elvis had that as part of his life, is a fat person in his life. And then all that shit that he got. Anyway, so it made me think about all of the other celebrities that have died, potentially at the hands of Fatphobia, or maybe very much more likely at the hands of Fatphobia. And they don't necessarily need to be fat, because we know Fatphobia affects everyone. Of course, it affects fat folks much more and more, if you have other marginalized identities, even more. But Fatphobia does affect everyone. And so I want to start off with Amy Winehouse. So Amy Winehouse, I love a bit of Amy Winehouse music. I really wish that she didn't die, so that she could have made more music for me to listen to, so very selfishly. But I remember when Amy Winehouse was first coming around, and I remember seeing her image in a, women's magazine. And this is when before she was actually famous. It was kind of like look at this new up and coming singer. And she was described as like plus size or curvy. And she absolutely, she wasn't. She was just she was straight sized with, a tiny little bit of kind of, no, not even a roll. Like, she had big breasts. And that's a lot of times people equate that to being curvy. Anyway. And then obviously her body changed, and people had opinions to say when she had a bigger body, and people had opinions to say when she had a smaller body. So let me quote from this article, which I'm going to... it's from Pitchfork, and we need to talk about Amy Winehouse's eating disorder and its role in her death. So let me quote from this. I'll link to that in the show notes. There is a tacitly accepted set of rules that our culture follows when it comes to women in the spotlight. They are required to be thin. They do not eat a normal diet, and that in itself is seen as normal, not even dangerous. Disordered eating is so normalized in our culture, especially in celebrity culture, that a few people even acknowledge that it is not healthy, and few people even acknowledge that it's not healthy and very potentially fatal. Eating disorders fall in line with what society expects of a celebrity. We love thinness so much, yet we know we're supposed to be repulsed by the means of achieving that thinness. It's easier to scrutinize their lifestyle or their partying than ever examine the toll of staying under a certain weight. Amy Winehouse learned those ugly rules of womanhood early, as footage from Asif Kapadia's devastating, much-praised documentary, Amy, reveals. A teenaged Winehouse, snacking with her friends, laments between mouthfuls that she's a pig and cannot help herself. In a voiceover during this sequence, the singer's mother, Janice Winehouse, recounts the moment of a young Amy tells her mother about discovering a great new diet, eating and then vomiting, that allows her to eat without gaining weight. That section goes on to say that her mum and her dad kind of weren't alarmed by this and the way that Amy was talking about her body, because they just thought it was normal teenager stuff. Which, that makes sense, but also it sounds alarming to me, but, I've got many years of hindsight. Maybe at the time I would have been like, oh. Anyway, continuing. This casual dismissal from her parents, the first mention of Amy Winehouse's eating disorder, is wrenching and comes almost halfway into the film. For many viewers, this may be the first time they have ever heard about Winehouse's eating disorder. As well documented as her struggles with alcohol and drug addiction were, the tiny little fact of her severe, untreated, decade-long eating disorder was rarely mentioned. When her thinness was mocked in the media, it was almost always with the implication that, hey, addicts are always skinny little wrecks. If her puffy face was ever evaluated, and it was, because every aspect of her physical appearance was eviscerated during the height of the media's obsession with her, it was through the lens of someone looking for signs of alcohol addiction, which commonly causes bloating in the face, and not signs of self-induced vomiting. So what they're talking about there is, you can have someone who might be vomiting a lot, might have engorged or enlarged or puffy salivary glands, and they are kind of on your face underneath your ear, kind of like, where you would know your salivary glands are if you would think about it in your mouth at the back. Actually, we've got we've got some at the front and then some at the back, right? Anyway, and so it's kind of like a bit on your jaw. And so what they're saying here is that people were like, oh, look how her face is puffy, even though she's thin, because it's alcohol. But not realizing that it might be her ED. Continuing, yet Amy Winehouse's eating disorder wasn't simply yet another bad decision, because here they're saying that, oh, look at Amy Winehouse, that she's just making bad decisions left, right and centre. The environmental and genetic factors at play in Winehouse's childhood and adolescence put her at extremely high risk for developing an eating disorder, and the lack of early intervention, education and stable guidance meant that the disease was able to firmly take root and flourish as she was put in higher and higher stress situations. Yeah, and not only higher and higher stress situations, like say if she had an average career, she was working in an office and she had high stress situations, she was in the public eye, and exactly that word that they used, eviscerated her appearance. According to the National Association for Anorexia Nervosa and Associated Disorders, quote, there isn't one conclusive cause of eating disorders. Multiple factors are involved, such as genetics, metabolism, psychological issues such as control, coping skills, trauma, personality factors, family issues, and social issues, such as a culture that promotes thinness and media that transmits this message. So this is important to note, is that it's complicated, right? EDs are complicated. But here's one thing to think about. I think it's very rare that someone who has an eating disorder happens to be fat positive. Not for others, for themselves. I think the one thing is, can they be fat positive towards others? And that's, I'd say, that much more likely, because they can probably say, absolutely, this person looks great. But what if we looked at that internalized fat phobia in themselves, and how much are they struggling with that? Everyone has weight bias. Everyone. Even me. So it goes without saying that also those with EDs have weight bias, because we've been raised in a society and been given messages that says fatness is not good, right? And you would have to be pretty spectacular to not absorb any of that information. Not even spectacular, like, I'm sure it's happened, There's probably lots of places that it could have happened, but on the whole, generally speaking, we all have that bias. Same way that we're all racist and ableist, and it just goes with having a human brain. Okay, continuing. Winehouse's many visits to treatment centres and her many attempts to go clean all centre on recovering from drug and alcohol abuse, but they seemingly never address a comorbid eating disorder, despite the fact that it was ruinous to her health and was the disease that she had been suffering from the longest amount of time. Yeah, absolutely. And in some other things here, it seems like with a lot of folks, if someone happens to be curvy or chubby, or if they don't even need to be, is people saying you need to lose weight, and a lot of celebrities are told they need to lose weight for whatever reason, because of fat phobia. And the framing of that initial "you need to lose weight" almost always seems to be, unless the person is already very small, seems to be a positive thing, especially in fatter bodied people. Oh, well, we were doing something good to become thinner and then it got out of control. And it's like, well, why is it that you have to have a smaller body for it to be, quote, out of control? And why was it good when they had a bigger body, and why is it now bad now they have a smaller body? And it's because of fat phobia, right? Okay, Amy Winehouse's official cause of death was alcohol poisoning, but this can be understood as the equivalent of someone with AIDS who has died from complications from pneumonia. Similar to the way HIV compromises a body's ability to fight infection, bulimia damages the body to the point where it is no longer able to keep up basic functions and is more susceptible to external threats. A doctor interviewed in the film describes Winehouse's death as a combination of alcohol poisoning and the weakened state of her body due to an eating disorder. But that assertion never made it into the official cause of death statement released to the public after Winehouse's passing. So that the article goes on to, like, what if it was? What if we were more aware of the fact that it wasn't just alcohol or drugs that Amy was struggling with, it was also an ED. And where did that come from? How did that start? Why was Amy calling herself a pig when she was eating and telling her parents that she's got this new great diet? Why was that not seen as alarming at the time? You know, because she was, you know, ever so slightly, tiny little bit curvy. You know, again, I'm like, not really. But, you know, maybe was it because it was like, well, you know, she could stand to be thinner, so why not? You know? And then in that moment, perhaps if her parents weren't invested in diet culture or fatphobia, maybe her parents would have, and it's not a parent's fault, but maybe her parents would have said, darling, why is it that you want to be thinner? What's going on? Why is it you're calling yourself a pig? Why do you think that you need to be a pig to eat? You know, and have that support there. Amy died 23rd of July 2011, age 27. Okay, next, Carrie Fisher. So I wasn't aware of this. I got a message from a follower who said I could write a sonnet about this, but Carrie Fisher. Her mental illnesses were well managed with meds, but she gained weight. They, quote, needed her to be thinner to play General Leia, so it's assumed she went off her meds to lose weight and use other, less safe drugs to even out. And it is very well maybe what killed her, because we couldn't have a fat General Leia. It breaks my heart every time I think about it. So Carrie Fisher spoke about the what she had to do to play Princess Leia, General Leia. I don't know. I don't watch Star Wars or whatever it is. Is it Star Wars? Some people are like, oh, Penny, how dare you? So she spoke about this more recently. So there's a Good Housekeeping article titled, I'm in a business where the only thing that matter are weight and appearance. So Carrie reveals she was pressured to lose more than 35 pounds for the new film. The new film being the second film that she was in like the 80s. So they don't want to hire all of me, only about 3/4. Nothing changes. It's an appearance-driven thing. I'm in a business where the only thing that matters is weight and appearance. That is so messed up. They might as well say get younger, because that's how easy it is. Carrie Fisher was, I'm going to say Carrie Bradshaw, Carrie Fisher, the things I've read about her since doing this research, I'm like, she was fucking badass, because she was talking how all this stuff is bullshit, and I'm loving it. So Stephen Colbert asked her about that article that she did, and she added, the first movie I had, I guess you'd still call it baby fat. The first movie I had, I guess you'd call it still baby fat. I would like to call it that, but it was probably just fat. So I went to a fat farm where they harvest fat. She said a couple of other celebrities were there as well, having their fat harvest. By the way, she didn't appear to be fat at all. From when I'm looking at the images, I think at the time she was seen as a sex symbol. Continuing. Meanwhile, Carrie previously revealed she had to lose 2.5 stone to reprise the role in Star Wars The Force Awakens. She said, nothing changes. It's an appearance-driven thing. Oh yeah, I've read that quote already. And then, she says, when I do lose the weight, I don't like that it makes me feel good about myself. It's not who I am. My problem is that they talk to me like an actress, but I hear them like a writer, because she was also a writer. And so she had to diet and stuff. And so she also at the same time was dealing with mental health issues, and coming off those drugs helped her become thinner temporarily. Then she was in another Star Wars movie in 2015, The Force Awakens, and people were talking shit about her body when she has co-stars who are the same age as her, Mark Hamill and Harrison Ford. Everyone was like, oh, Mark Hamill is just so nice. He's such a great guy. And Harrison Ford is so hunky. And Carrie Fisher, she hasn't aged well when she looked exactly what she should look like as a human being at the age that she was. And so, quote, Carrie Fisher has had it up to here with body shaming discussions about how she no longer looks like she did in the 1980s when Princess Leia squirmed around in a gold bikini while imprisoned by Jabba the Hutt. In a series of tweets, the former Star Wars star, now best-selling author, took to social media to address some of the body-shaming comments being made unfavorably, comparing Leia in The Force Awakens to her svelter appearance 30-plus years ago in The Return of the Jedi. These are the quick tweets that she said. Please stop debating about whether or not I aged well. Ultimately, it hurt through all three of my feelings. My body hasn't aged well as I have. As it hasn't aged as well as I have. So Carrie Fisher died of a heart attack. Her daughter stated that Fisher battled drug addiction and mental illness her entire life. She ultimately died of it. She was purposefully open in all of her work about the social stigmas around these diseases. I know my mum, she'd want her death to encourage people to be open about their struggles. And as well, I wonder, how much of 2015 when she was in this movie. She died in 2016, 27th of December, age 60. How did that affect her? She's got these tweets and she's quite sassy, like fuck off sort of thing, but she's also saying I haven't aged well. I mean, I don't know about that statement, because what is aging well? What does that mean? And so did that then spur her to come off her medications that helped her with her mental health? Did that also help with her maybe taking some diet pills or something? I don't know. What happened when she did take diet pills? And I did an episode on diet pills, and they really, really are very, very dangerous. As well, alongside yo-yo dieting, weight cycling, which is basically just dieting, is really not good for your heart. So just something to think about there. All right, so Cass Elliot, if you don't know, was a singer, or the lead singer maybe? The Mamas and Papas, which was a band from the 1970s. I think they sang all the trees of let me do it properly. Let me find out exactly what they sang. California Dreamin', I think that's what they did. I'm Googling. Songs. California Dreaming, yeah. Dream a little dream of me. Sing that one as well. Let's see the lyrics of California Dream. All the leaves are brown, and the sky is grey, I've been for a walk on a winter's day, Right, it goes like that. Now you're like, oh yes, I know who you're talking about, in case you don't know, or maybe you don't even recognize that song. Okay, so quoting from an article from Vogue, Mama Cass Elliot died almost 50 years ago, but her memory is still obscured by fatphobia. It was a death heard about round the world, or at least around California. On July 29th, 1974, Mama Cass Elliot, one of the most memorable and charismatic members of the Los Angeles-based folk rock group the Mamas and Papas, died in her sleep in a London apartment at the age of 32. There too are many similar stories to count about musical legends passing away before their time. Jimmy, Janice, Kurt, and all the other members of the morbidly named 27 Club come to mind. But Elliot's death stands out in part because of the baseless rumour that has persisted for nearly half a century, specifically that she died by choking on a ham sandwich. I first heard that story sometime in my late teens, shortly after discovering the song California Dreaming, in the way that young people love to discover retro music, which is to say, insufferably. At the time, it occurred to me as a mere historical oddity. What a weird way to go. But now, having learned more about Elliot's short and pain-filled life, I'm struck by the fact that one of the few fat women in pre-aughts music history is forever tethered to an ugly urban legend, implying that her death was brought about by food. Appetite was what killed Elliot, the now debunked legend seemed to say, an appetite so big and out of control that she couldn't tame it to even fit the punishing norms for women's bodies in the 1970s America. For most fat people, this fear of gluttony is nothing new. We're constantly told that our bodies are too big, that we're too lazy, that we're driving up healthcare premiums simply by existing in our skin. I'll never know Elliot or understand what it felt like to be one of the few highly visible fat women in a society marred by unchecked fat phobia, but I think I can guess what it might have been like to stand on stage every night before an audience who saw you as either a threat or a joke. Of course, Elliot was adored by legions of fans, just like other folk rock chanteuses of her time, but things were different for her. Even her own band poked fun at her weight, including the line, "No one's getting fat except Mama Cass," in the lyrics to the 1967 song Creek Alley. Hiding behind the hand sandwich legend, which has now been thoroughly disproven, is a much grimmer backstory to Mama Cass's life and death, one which far too many people will be able to identify. In February 2020 episode of the Hollywood Law podcast, You Must Remember This, the Oakland-based writer Lexi Pandel explained that the actual cause of Elliot's death was heart failure brought on, at least in part, by a history of crash dieting in an effort to lose the weight that all but defined her image. Elliot had experimented with drugs, but none were present in her system at the time of her death, nor was there any food in her windpipe, according to coroner Keith Simpson. Elliot's official cause of death was labelled as fatty myocardial degeneration due to O-word. But that would still be a shocking cause of death for such a young woman and has largely been refuted. Pandel tells me, "From the research I've done and the doctors I spoke to, it seems the most likely cause of death was extreme dieting in combination with long-term substance abuse." Pandel believes that present-day fat phobia contributes to a continued lack of understanding about how Elliot actually died, in part because confronting the possibility that Cass may have died due to extreme dieting challenges our idealization of diet culture. There is a wealth of evidence out there about how unhealthy extreme dieting can be. I'm going to come in here and say not even extreme dieting, not to mention ineffective in the long term, with 97% of dieters gaining back every pound they lost and then some within 3 years. Unfortunately, though, during the span of Elliot's all too short life, to be thin was widely considered empirically good and healthy, while fatness was seen as health compromising and morally suspect, regardless of the specific of an individual's health status or medical history. Despite all the body positive gains that have been made in the last half century, far too many of us are still stuck in that binary blinkered mindset. We also have a quote from an article that Mama Cass was quoted in. She says, "I've invented a fabulous new diet. It costs only $2,000 for each pound you lose. It also weakens your natural resistance to disease. I can't guarantee it, but the Mama Cass diet can give you acute tonsillitis, hemorrhaging vocal cords, mono, and a dangerous case of hepatitis. At least that's what it did for me. I lost my health and more than $250,000 in earnings as a singer." I watched her last appearance on TV. I watched the beginning segment of it. Her mum was in the audience, and I just thought, oh, in a few days that mum is going to be heartbroken. And even Cass Elliot was saying, she passed out. She said she passed out because she hadn't eaten all day. And I was alarmed by that, but the host was just like, changed the subject about what rings that she was wearing. And then she went back onto it, and she was like, yeah. And it was kind of embarrassing because, I passed out with curlers in my hair when there was lots of people around. And again, the host doesn't say anything about it. And then there was a kid on the stage, and the kid had this big jar of candy and was eating the candy. And the kid said, "Oh, you can have some." And she said, "Oh, it's okay. I've already had some." And she said, "I haven't eaten all day, so I needed to quickly grab something to keep me going," is what she said. And to me, that was, if a straight-sized person was sat on that stage and said, "I passed out because I didn't eat anything all day long, and I had to just grab some candy there because I haven't eaten and I need to keep going," would that host be like, "Oh my goodness, it sounds like you're not eating enough"? That sounds kind of like you need to eat. But it was totally ignored. And I doubt that anyone else really picked up on that. And if they did, they were probably like, well, good for her. She's trying to lose weight. When she was saying that it was, it caused her to pass out. And then, shortly after, from what this doctor is saying, chronic dieting took her life. And then very cruelly, because I think she was staying in actually another famous person's house. And in the house, I think there was a ham sandwich around. And so the medical examiner who was there, the rumor got started because the medical examiner who was there was like, "Oh, look, there's a ham sandwich. Perhaps she choked eating it." And I mean, how fucked up is that? Would a straight-sized person who was lying dead, who happened to be food around in the apartment, have a medical examiner say, "Oh, it's probably because they were eating"? And then that's how the rumor got started, because that was then shared with the press. And then it's like, well, of course, look at this fat person who died eating. And it wasn't true. And he did say that the medical examiner, an autopsy needs to be done to find out exactly, but here's an idea. Because she was 32, right? And she shouldn't be dying. There's no reason for her to be dying. And so it's not like it's, maybe an older person. It's like, oh, well, they died of old age. And so there needs to be a reason there. What's going on? So she died July 29th. 1974, age 32. I really wish that she'd stuck around. Looking at pictures of her, I'm like, oh, she was fucking cool. And she was fat, by the way, in case there's any confusion there. She was one of the people here that we're talking about that was actually fat. And had spent so much time and effort to try and become thin. All right, so let's go to another from the 70s, Karen Carpenter. Karen was a singer in the pop duo The Carpenters. They did the song Why do birds suddenly appear every time you are near? So that was Karen Carpenter. So this is a quote from the independent.ie. The real reason Karen Carpenter was driven to anorexia. She died from anorexia. Karen's disorder is described as having started out innocently enough when she wanted to lose a few pounds after leaving high school. She had been a chubby teenager, and in 1973 she saw a photo of herself that prompted her to take action. She had put on weight and didn't look good. In her stage outfit. So the Independent says. She doesn't look. Who says? So she hired a personal trainer who put her on a carbohydrate-based diet. She also had friends who told her that she was too big. Naturally, she began to bulk up. She fired her trainer and took her own extreme measures. She lost 20 pounds and, quote, looked fabulous, said a sister of an old boyfriend. But unfortunately, she didn't stop there. At restaurants, Karen pushed her food around her plate and urged friends at the table to try her meal, stealthily getting rid of her food, whilst giving the impression she was enjoying her meal so much she wanted others to try it too. In 1975, Karen was admitted to hospital, physically and emotionally exhausted from 2 years on the road and years of extreme dieting. This particular occasion got her mother's attention, and she nursed Karen. She even regained some weight. Finally, she died from ipecac poisoning, which is a drug used to induce vomiting in overdose cases, and Karen had been using it as another way of controlling her weight. She was not aware of its side effect of slowly dissolving the heart's muscles and had been taking it every day. She died February 4th, 1983, aged 32. Yeah, and so I'm thinking, EDs are complicated, right? But what is the starting thing here? She saw a photo of herself, and she didn't like the fact that she'd put on weight, which is fatphobia. Her friends and family told her to lose weight. Why did they tell her to lose weight when she clearly was not ever fat, right? Why did they believe that was the best course of action? Perhaps they were trying to prepare her for a success in a fatphobic world. Perhaps she was trying to prepare herself for success in a fatphobic world by being as thin as possible, because that was what we're told is needed. So let's talk about Elvis. Elvis is kind of like, well, and I just want to talk about him. So, quote, Presley was one of the biggest musical sensations ever, but he was human and had feelings. His former girlfriend, Linda Thompson, shared that the weight gain really bothered him. And so he had gained weight in the later part of his life. According to Elvis.com, she said it was living life out of the public eye. He was living life and eating out of the public eye and eating at all hours. It just feels so unkind to be talking about him like this. Presley loved food, and cycles of weight gain began. Thompson added that he always battled with his weight, and the two of them structured their social life around eating. She also said that the weight gain really did bother him. The former model elaborated, the criticism bothered him. He was a very sensitive, acutely sensitive person to other people's perceptions of him, and it did hurt his feelings a lot. Something about that, we don't know that he took diet pills, but was there something in that Elvis movie that made me think that he had? Anyway, he was taking other drugs. And so how did fatphobia contribute towards Elvis's experiences in life? What was going on there? Why is it, they're saying his life revolved around food and all of these other really awful articles I'm not going to read out. This was like the kindest that I could find. Being like, oh, he ate X amount of calories a day and, he was just, all he ever did was eat and it's just, to me, I'm like, is that true? Is that a good story to tell? if it is true, what's going on? Was he okay mentally? Was he, what was going on with him? Was he just trying to survive in this really, difficult situation that he might have been in? And watching the film was about how his manager financially abused him, and he was kind of stuck at the I can't remember what the name of the hotel is in Vegas, with this residency forever and ever, and he had little freedom. And his manager made it so he couldn't leave, because if he did, then he would be bankrupt and lose all his money. So, I mean, is it a case of him trying to, like with me, when I was in an abusive relationship, one of the only sources of comfort that I had was food, because I wasn't accessing, drugs or alcohol or anything like that. But it was the only joy, and it really did help me survive. At the time, I would say I was actually pretty straight side, a small fat person. But my boyfriend at the time had told me that I was too big, and so he'd put me on a diet and controlled everything that I ate. So I didn't have control when he was around for what I ate. And so I did when he wasn't around, and I think it saved me, because that's what I had access to. And I think about that with, obviously that's not everyone's story, and it's probably not even a lot of people's story, but that's what came up when I thought about Elvis. And I mean, it could have been anything else as well. But the way that we talk about Elvis, Fat Elvis, as if he was like just let himself go, and he was this just, I don't even want to repeat them, like the words that they were saying about him. Okay, so Anna Nicole Smith. Recently, she lost a reported 69 pounds and became a spokeswoman for Trim Spa, a weight loss supplement. She always had problems with her weight going up and down, and there's no question she used alcohol. It was no secret that she, quote, had a very troubled life and had so many problems. She wanted to be like Marilyn Monroe her whole life, and ironically died in a similar manner. Monroe died of a drug overdose at age 36 in 1962. And Anna Nicole Smith died of an overdose of diet pills. Correction, it wasn't diet pills. I was looking at a different link here. It was combinations of lots of different drugs. But I mean, she was spokesperson for this Trim Spa, and I wonder how much of, she's there struggling with her weight. So I wonder how much of what was going on with Anna Nicole Smith was linked to her desire for thinness. Okay, so this is the thing that I was looking at. The star who did die from diet pills. Police Academy star Bubba Smith died from diet pill overdose. Police Academy star and NFL legend Bubba Smith died from taking too many diet pills, according to the LA county coroner. They released the actor's cause of death, the first of which was acute, I don't want to say the name of the diet pill, intoxication. This name is a generic name for a weight loss medication. He was 6'7" and died at age 66. Okay. Shane Warne, a famous cricketer. I don't know about cricketing, but Shane Warne was on an extreme 14-day diet as new details of tragic death emerged age 52. His manager, James Erskine, revealed that he resorted to radical measures to lose weight and had just finished an extreme and, quote, ridiculous cleanse in which he had only fluids for about 14 days. We don't know if that was what killed him, but they happened to mention that. Joan Rivers she didn't die from fatphobia, but she died from having a facelift. And so why are people having facelifts? Because beauty culture, because of ageism. Her daughter, Melissa Rivers, has filed a malpractice suit against Yorkville Endoscopy, the New York City clinic that treated her mother Joan for a minor throat surgery last August. And she had a facelift. The procedure had complications and Joan Rivers went into cardiac arrest. She died a week later. Tekashi 69, still alive, a young person, was hospitalized after ingesting a combo of diet pills and caffeine. According to multiple sources and as covered by People, the rapper was admitted to a Florida hospital after admittedly taking more than the suggested dosage. He told the Shade Room that instead of taking one pill, he took two and mixed it with a cup of coffee. After that, his heart rate sped up and he began to sweat excessively. The celebrity gossip account added that Tekashi is recovering at home and is doing fine. The company that sells pills that he took asserts that it can help customers lose weight fast without any unwanted side effects. However, history has proven difficult. In fact, the pill that Tekashi took was linked to severe organ damage and multiple deaths, and it has reportedly been removed from the market by the FDA multiple times. And then when we're thinking about diet pills, there's this article from CBS, Hollywood's Dangerous Weight Loss Secret. And it's talking about the kind of open secret about diet pill usage within Hollywood. And in here it quotes, they're reporting on the pressure on actresses and models to be thin, causes some to find dangerous ways to speed up their weight loss along. More people seem to be turning to drugs like blah blah blah, which is approved in the United States to treat asthma in horses. The side effect of this drug is that it builds muscle and results in temporary weight loss. I hear it a lot in my gym and it's a dangerous drug. A Hollywood fitness trainer said, "There isn't a magic pill. If there was, I'm a business person, I'd be selling it, I'd be taking it." But in Hollywood, some people are willing to trade their health to be thin. Celebrities and models are dissected on the red carpet and runways and face a lot of pressure to look perfect. If you're thin, you're successful, said Ken Baker, a West Coast executive editor at US Weekly, I think it's Us. It has become this epidemic that you have to be thin, and too thin is never thin enough. Scarlett Pomers, who starred on the CW sitcom Reba, is recovering from an eating disorder and says many young actresses feel they have got to get skinny if they want to work. I definitely have heard horror stories from other actresses and actors too that have been told, well, lose 15 pounds, you can get that part, she said. It really just puts you in this place where you kind of don't know what's normal or not. A lot of these women in Hollywood are under such extreme pressure that they'll go to extreme measures to get the look that they want. Some say this diet pill has become Hollywood's dirty little secret. Hollywood hairstylist Ricardo Reyes have used the drug to drop weight. Why get there in 3 months when you can get there in a month? Well, the answer to that is because it is going to hurt you. Also, I'm just thinking about any celebrity who's died whilst being fat, like what's his name, Chris Farley, that guy that was in Uncle Buck, John, what's his name, Uncle Buck. That was a good film, wasn't it? Do you remember that one? John Candy. Yeah. Anyone who dies whilst being fat, it doesn't matter what they died from. People report it as they died from being fat, you know. Like Chris Farley, he took a speedball. I can't remember. It's a combination of two different drugs, and he died. And I'm reading articles about him, and it's like, well, he was so fat. What? What? And as well, like the way that when they were alive, they were portrayed, you know, like Chris Farley, he was famous. So he was on SNL, Saturday Night Live. He was famous for this Chip and Dale sketch where him and Patrick Swayze audition for the Chippendales. That was the sketch, right? And the joke was that Chris Farley was fat, and look at this guy, Patrick Swayze, who was muscly and toned and tanned and tall, and look at this Chris Farley, he was shorter than him, fat, visibly fat, and then they both take the shirts off and they're both dancing, and then the joke is they can't decide which one to pick, and the joke is it's so ridiculous because clearly Patrick Swayze is the perfect person to be a Chippendales model because Chris Farley is fat. Eventually they go with Patrick Swayze. And how much of a fat person who is in the media spotlight is their fatness is just a core part of their, quote, personality, you know? And as well, when we think about diet pills, also celebrities will undergo stomach amputation or stomach squeezing surgery. And so I'm just going to, not that folks have died from it, but there's a list of people who've had bariatric surgery. And so Rosie O'Donnell, who was told that she needed to lose weight, and so she had surgery after trying a diet. I don't know. There's a before and after picture, and I can't really see that much difference. Lisa Lampanelli. I don't know who she is, but apparently she's famous. And her before picture, she seems pretty straight size or small fat. She says, for 32 years from the age of 18 to 50, I tried everything on the planet to become thin. And anyway, I've done a few episodes on gastric surgery, and it's really, really fucked up. And the results, I mean, the studies that we have around it are absolutely lacking, shocking. The information is not showing that this surgery is good. It'll help people temporarily lose weight. Surprise, surprise. Has terrible side effects, really high death rate from the surgery, increased risk of tons of different things. But for some folks, it does make them smaller, and so they're like, "Oh my god, my life is amazing now," which is fine if that's what's worked for them. Then I'm happy that they haven't had negative outcomes, because that's a really difficult thing to go through. But why are these people going through these surgeries? They're famous people. Wonder why. Let's continue. Randy Jackson, the former American Idol judge, because he was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. He tried lots of different things to get thin. Get this. He says liquid fasts, bee stings, urine of pregnant women. You name it, I've tried it. And then he says that he has a disease, which is the O word. In 2003, Randy got gastric bypass surgery and lost X pounds when he began to gain some of the weight back. Carney Wilson of the pop group Wilson Phillips. A few months afterwards, she says it was the right decision for her. Al Roker, everyone's favourite weatherman. He has a memoir, Never Going Back, Winning the Weight Loss Battle for Good. He promised his dad on his deathbed that he would lose weight. Oh, he wasn't even that big. Sharon Osbourne. She had lap band surgery in 1999. She says the procedure made her very sick, so she had the band removed in 2006. I've struggled with weight my entire life. I've been fat and I've been thin, she told Us Weekly. As you know, I got the lap band and I lost a ton of weight, but it made me so sick. That's why I had to remove it. But when I removed it, I gained 45 pounds. Gabourey Sidibe, Roseanne Barr, Mama June Shannon. So that was from, what was her name? Honey Boo Boo? Yeah, so Mama June from Honey Boo Boo had gastric sleeve surgery in 2006. She says, doing all the surgeries really took a toll on me, not just physically, but emotionally. Graham Elliott, the star, a master chef judge, Lauren Manzo, the Real Housewives of New Jersey, got a lap band when she was 24. And they share her weight. She was small. She says getting the lap band was the best thing I've ever done in my life. Star Jones, co-host of The View. NFL coach and current ESPN analyst Rex Ryan. Abby Lee Miller from Dance Mums. Austin Chumley Russell from Porn Stars. And the list goes on. Etta James, no! Etta James, at last my love has come along. Yeah, so the list goes on and on and on. There's, probably a lot of folks who've had surgery. And I mean, if someone wants to have surgery, go for it. But I wonder why, the pressures of that being in the public eye is probably a lot harder. I can't even imagine. I've said this before. If a celebrity does anything to try and become thin, I totally understand it. And that's why I titled it Legends that Fatphobia Stole, because I really feel, folks, that they are victims to systems of oppression that hurts many, many people. And they've got that added layer of being in the public eye. And I mean, I started out with Amy Winehouse, and the way that the press spoke about Amy's body, I don't know how anyone could survive that. I mean, even if someone was really, had a therapist they could talk to every day, and their mental health was in tip-top condition, and then they had paparazzi following them everywhere and at their front doorstep, and then writing absolutely awful shit about, even when she was not theoretically using drugs or alcohol, was still talking shit about her body. And it doesn't matter, what people do. Celebrities, people are always going to criticize their bodies. They're too big, too fat, too thin. But obviously the driving force behind a lot of this is weight bias, is the idea that thinness is superior to fatness, which is not true. So what do you think? Is there anyone else that you can think of? There's probably many, right, that I've totally missed. And there's many that we maybe don't even know about, and their death was ruled as this or that. Like with Elvis Presley, his autopsy has been sealed, and it's sealed until 50 years after his death, which is 2027. And so in 5 years' time, we're going to be able to see the autopsy results to know what really was going on. And there's lots of different theories about what happened to him, but I think the cause of death that they announced was heart attack, maybe. I think that's what it was. But if we think about fatphobia, anti-fat bias, as understanding the harm that it causes to our physical and mental health, it absolutely has contributed to many, many deaths, and many of the deaths that I've spoken about today. And it's hard to be absolutely sure, right? Because it's a very complicated issue. But I think that for a lot of these folks, especially the ones with EDs, there was that underlying anti-fat bias that definitely contributed to a lot of those experiences that they had in their lives, which was not okay. That I really do have compassion for people who are in the public eye, because I mean, I don't know if I could do that, to have people write about me constantly and pick apart every single part of me in a world that supports fatphobia. I don't know. That sounds really difficult. So I wish that these folks were able to live without that. And obviously that wasn't the case. And hopefully celebrities of today, we're going to be able to treat them with a little bit more kindness when it comes to bodies. And I think, yes, there will be, but there's always going to be this idealization of thinness at any cost. And if you think about it, like in that one where it was like the hidden secret, which is diet pills in Hollywood, what would you do if you were told you needed to lose X amount of weight to get into this film and potentially become rich and famous, and you knew you had to do it in 2 weeks or something? I mean, I wouldn't be sure that I would say no, you know? Like, I'm sitting here right now, I'd be like, well, no, that wouldn't happen because I wouldn't be in that situation, blah, blah, blah. But what if I was trying to be an actor? What if I was told that I am this close to achieving my dreams and all I need to do is become thinner? Would I say no and go back to, and let my dreams die, theoretically, or would I just do it? I think a lot of us would just do it, and I'm saying, who knows what I would do? Because you'd think, oh, it's just so close. I'm so close. If I just lose this amount of weight, I'll be thin enough, trying to get to this place that doesn't exist. And even then, if you do happen to become famous, I mean, it doesn't stop. It doesn't stop. It just gets worse because you have more eyes on you dissecting your body. Anyway, let me know if you've got anyone else that you think should have been in this episode. I'd love to hear about it. And obviously not everyone in this episode died. Just in case you're like, hang on, did Tekashi 69 die? No. Or the other people who had gastric surgery, none of them died. And we've talked about a lot of darker kind of stuff today and fucked up stuff today. So if you need to go and do a little bit of self-care, I would encourage it. Go and watch something amazing on Netflix, or go and look at some fat positive accounts, or watch like some funny cat fail videos. That would be good. I was doing that last night when it was like 2 a.m. I was like, go to fucking bed. Stop watching these. And then it goes into like funny fail videos. And it goes into watching idiot drivers. I was watching like for an hour. It's so silly. Then I was like, okay, enough. Go to bed. And I did. Anyway, thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you are having a wonderful day and have a wonderful rest of your week and life. If I never hear from you again. Okay, goodbye. See you in a while, alligator.
Perfect.